You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. You know, they can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The 2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Hope you had a great weekend. We're back with another week of shows with plenty to cover here on today's show, especially all of the college basketball news and notes, tons of games, not a lot of upsets over the weekend, but some big movement, and we'll discuss that as well. Of course, NBA back in full swing. We'll check in with the association. Also, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report. Touch a little bit on the NFL as we're starting to get, closer to free agency. Drafts coming up a little bit once a week. We'll check in with Adam Caplan to see if anything's percolating. He's our SportsGrid insider, so stay on the grid for that. As we begin our week of shows, let's get to the very latest, and we could have another potential scandal in sports wagering as it relates to college sports. We'll start off with Fresno State. The basketball program is currently under some scrutiny as to some potential ties to sports gambling. The NCAA and the university are looking at it. The school removed 1 player from the team and also suspended 2 others for at least Saturday's loss to Air Force. The Fresno State in a statement said that a couple of players, one named Jalen Weaver, another named Zayon Collins, are being withheld from competition as the university reviews an eligibility matter. Now, meanwhile, they've lost 10 games in a row. They're 5-23, but that's not really the issue right now, because if there's alleged ties to sports wagering, got to look into this one, especially as the regular season comes to a close. Meanwhile, Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid are looking at some different options for his left knee. Just hasn't been healthy all season. Don't be surprised to hear that he could miss the remainder of the season. More tests this week. It looks like they'll collaborate with some specialists, figure out what to do. He's only played in 19 games this season, and the Sixers are going nowhere, so don't be surprised to hear this. Now, meanwhile, in the NBA last night, Oklahoma City finally took down Minnesota. It's been like the one team they can't beat all season long. They ended up getting the win yesterday. As you can see, the final 130-123. Big game for SGA once again, closing in on his first ever NBA MVP, and they're still playing great basketball, and they finally found a way to take care of the Timberwolves. After the game, SGA talked about the win and finally overcoming the one team they seem to have an issue with.
Nothing really impressed me about this group. We're so many games in. I know the character guys we have. I know what we're capable of, no matter what the game looks like. And we as a group did what I expected. We weren't perfect tonight. Obviously, our second quarter could have been a lot better. But yeah, we did enough to get a W, and we'll take it.
Another high-scoring game in the NBA yesterday. In fact, is this the same score? Very similar. 129-123, the Cavaliers beat the Memphis Grizzlies, as you can see there. Nice game from Donovan Mitchell and company, and really the key for Cleveland down the stretch is trying to find defensive rebounding. That's been one of their things they're trying to prove. By the way, on the offensive side as well, they can shoot it. We know that. After the game, Kenny Atkinson said much better job on the boards for his team.
We've been emphasizing it. It's just taken a while to kick in, but we've been emphasizing it. I told you, kind of post All-Star, we really made a focus with the guys of win the possession game, because you're not going to shoot the ball well all the time, especially in the playoffs. Sometimes you're not going to shoot free throws well, like tonight, because you're defending so hard. So that was the difference. And I don't know where they rank in the possession game. I'll bet you they're top 3. But I think we were plus 10. That was the difference, because we did not. We started out 2 for 20 from 3. So to win that game, that was a playoff type win.
Meanwhile, in college basketball, St. John's keeps winning and going from just qualifying to the NCAA tournament, which would have been a nice season for them, to winning the Big East, closing in on that, and a high seed in the NCAA tournament. How about that story this year for Rick Pitino and company? They win at MSG 89-75 over UConn, and they swept UConn for the first time since the 1999-2000 season. They've won 3 straight, 13 of 14. They could get a top 8 or 7 ranking, maybe when that comes out later today. Could be possible. Dan Hurley, head coach of UConn, not happy as you. Whoa, that's not a happy picture. Not happy as you can see with the 3-point success that St. John's had.
Just that first half shooting for them, making 8 threes, just gave them that cushion. Obviously for us, you play against this team with that defense and that rebounding, and with those type of wings and Ejiofor and the pressure they could put on the paint. If they shoot the ball like that from the perimeter, they're going to be a problem for anyone. So,
Kadari Richmond is more injured than any player I've coached right now, and he fights through it. He's got double groin pulls. He's got problems all over his anatomy, and he played the game and played hard. So I don't know about anything except he killed it, and he needs time off as much as we can give him right now, because he's really hurting. But he showed up tonight and gave it to us.
Maybe the biggest upset of the weekend in college basketball, Indiana taking out Purdue. Final 73-58. Indiana's trying to get in the NCAA tournament, one of those bubble teams. Not a bubble for Michigan State. Are they coming on strong or what? They beat Michigan on Friday night, 75-62. They now control their destiny for the Big Ten. They're 22-5 on the season, 13-3 in the conference. What a great second half of the season they have had. But Tom Izzo saying it wasn't easy having to beat the Wolverines.
We beat a damn good team today. They are hard to guard. They missed some shots too. I thought the first half we were awful, and we only had one guy, Jace, that played well. And when I went in at halftime, I said we got a chance, because I thought we'd be about 15 down the way we played. And maybe they didn't make some shots, although they shot 53%. But the turnovers we had that led to touchdowns were ridiculous. And so we felt like if we could just do a few things, move the ball a little better, make a couple shots, which for us to make that many threes is a miracle. But the way we've been shooting lately, but I really felt like, Trey Holloman did a hell of a job, and Jace Richardson was unbelievable. And we got lucky, Jeremy Banks in a shot. We got lucky. And they missed a couple of shots that I think they normally hit. So, well-coached team. He changed it up on us, went zone and man. But I thought our guys responded after a couple tough runs.
Crimson Tide also picking up a win yesterday, 96-83. Mark Sears had 30 points. Number 4, Alabama closing in on the SEC tournament, maybe facing off with Auburn or Florida for that championship. We'll see. Meanwhile, Auburn won again, so they'll still be the number 1 team in the country. Janai Broome had 31 points and 14 rebounds. Auburn wins 82-70 over Georgia on Saturday. LJ Cryer had 28 points. Number 5 Houston beat Iowa State 68-59. Houston's 30-4 in the Big 12 in his 2 seasons in the league. They've been fantastic. Chaz Lanier also had a nice game, 77-69 for Tennessee as they beat Texas A&M. A&M has now lost 2 games in a row. And also Janelle Mitchell had 18 points as Arkansas. They needed a big win for their resume. They beat Missouri, number 15 ranked Missouri. Final score 92-85. In spring training action, most of the games today in Florida are going to be rained out. It's a miserable rainy day here in Florida, maybe tomorrow too. Yesterday on the diamond, Alex Bregman ended up hitting his first spring training home run. He was 3 for 3. Also had a double and a single as he put on that Boston Red Sox uniform for the first time. The Brewers signed Manuel Margot to a minor league contract. Kevin Pillar, not going to retire, says that he's going to sign a minor league deal with the Rangers. And our buddy Tim Healy, who was on the show yesterday, mentioned today on social media that the Mets, who signed free agent prize pitcher Sean Manaea to a long-term deal, has an oblique issue and is going to miss the beginning of the season, starting off the season on the IL for the Mets. Second pitcher, by the way, that they have had injured right before the spring training or early spring training season begins. Let's take a quick time out here on NewsWire. When we come back next, Matt Lutovsky joins us from Sporting News. If the games can't happen in Florida, they'll go on in Arizona. That's where all the teams in the American League West are. We'll have a preview of that division coming up next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's check in with Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News on the American League West. And my gosh, this seems to be a tight division from start to finish. Matt, we couldn't have said that a few years ago, but, Seattle has gotten better. The Rangers certainly, continue to get better. And for the first time last year, Matt, it didn't seem like the Astros were invincible, and Kyle Tucker has gone. It seems like this is kind of like an up-in-the-air division. It wouldn't surprise me if any of those 3 teams ended up winning, and I haven't said that for about 10 years, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. I was on here last week. We talked about the AL Central and how, jumbled that was with four teams that really were very similar and had a legitimate claim. Feels like the West is the same, only three instead of four teams. No offense, obviously, to the Angels and A's, but they have an uphill climb. I think we all know that. But yeah, those three teams at the top of the West are all, again, they're not exactly similar in terms of how they're built, but in terms of their total talent. Very tough to discern between the three. They all have legitimate claims for why you can make a case for why all three will be the best team and will be the winner. And obviously, in cases like this, a lot of times it just comes down to health and which team can win that war of attrition. Because, like I said, they're all very good. They all have offense. The Mariners especially have pitching, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this one shakes out.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, honestly, I look at it now, and I kind of look on paper and think, I got to be honest with you, that the Rangers should be the favorite here. I mean, to me, they may be the most talented team in the division. Their win total is 85.5. I understand their season last year was down. I mean, I get that. I mean, it was hard to be up after, so they got so fortunate, I think, in that run they had to the World Series. Corey Seager will be healthy. Simeon will be healthy. Made some nice moves in the offseason as well. There's some people clamoring for them to kind of put their foot on the gas there, but they get that guy, Jacob deGrom, back, and it kind of feels like, Matt, if deGrom makes 20 starts, I mean, I don't know if we can even ask that, but if he makes 20 starts, it just changes the dynamic completely of that team. I mean, can't hinge on one player, but he's a critical guy, I think, for them this year.
No, for sure, because I think when you look at their rotation, that's where maybe you have a few questions. The lineup is great, but deGrom's a big part of that rotation, or at least what they hope will be that rotation. And if he's not healthy, that takes a big bite out of things. And they might be at the point where they're good enough, or they feel confident. Okay, we're going to make the postseason no matter what. We just got to make sure he's healthy for the postseason. It might be one of that situations, but obviously, when you're just talking about, well, who's going to win the division in the regular season, that would be the only thing that gives me pause about that team, because the lineup is stacked. They have good pitching in general, but are they going to be able to get over the top? And that's going to require staying healthy with some of those key guys.
Yeah, no, definitely so. So when it comes to Houston, though, Matt, the thing for me is they do a really good job replacing players. They've had to do it so many times before, in Springer and Correa. For the first time this year, I'm not sure that they did that. I know they got Isaac Paredes, so he's going to help out. They're going to move Altuve to the outfield. I know we're going to talk about their pitching here a little bit. I'm honestly not really worried about their pitching. I think their pitching is going to be okay. I don't know that they have the pop going into this season as they had in all those World Series years and division years and years past. Feels like they didn't replace Tucker. And, honestly, did they even really replace Bregman here?
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. It's one of those teams, when you look at the roster, you look at the projected lineup, you see a lot of these familiar names that have been, staples of their incredible run here over the last, almost decade. And like you said, the rotation is good, but even though you see some of those names, top to bottom, it's not quite there the way it's been in the past. And, the names that you recognize, they're all getting a little bit older. So there are, I think, some question marks there, but they're certainly, very good as they've been here for a while. I think they, have the potential to maybe make a move at some point during the season if they want to do that, if they're willing to do that. But I don't think there's a question. I mean, I would think even most Astros fans would say that our lineup isn't quite as potent as it's been in years past. And so this is a team now that's, going to rely on pitching a little bit more. And the good thing for them is they have the arms to do it. So they're not going away. Let's put it that way. Just because they lost a couple key guys, they're still going to be a very good team and right in the mix for the division title.
Yeah, and I should mention Christian Walker signed with them in the offseason. Yeah. It's not like they have nothing. It's just a different feel. But their pitching development's been fantastic. Pitching development also fantastic in Seattle. We don't need to go there. We know they have the best pitching in the division, if not the best pitching in all of baseball, 1 through 4. They're fantastic. But it's going to be the offense that they're going to hope for this year. They acquired a Rosarena at the end of last year, so their thinking is this is really going to push them over the top. I know fans in Seattle are just sick and tired of seeing, Matt, these 2-1 games and these 4-1 games. Are like, let's get it going here on offense. So they're going to hope that getting a Rosarena last year helps. And they're certainly also going to hope that the next step is taken by Julio Rodriguez. If he could ever get out of his own way in April and May, he'd be the best player in baseball, but starts off slow every year.
Yeah, that's just it. You know, I was on here last week, and we kind of talked about teams where they can have internal improvement. So often we just look at, well, who they add, who they subtract. I mean, that's the type of guy who, superstar potential. If he can just put it all together for a full season, and just him doing that is really going to lift this offense. It's obviously going to lead to more wins early in the season, and that might be all it takes. I think the top of their lineup is strong, and maybe a little bit deceptively strong. And, with the pitching they have, that's the nice thing, where even if the offense isn't cooking, you can win some 2-1 games. Obviously, some of it's the ballpark too, maybe holding back the offense a little bit. But overall, I still think this is a really strong team. And I always like the teams with the best rotation. So, I think those three teams are so tightly bunched. I don't think you can look at one versus the other and say, oh, this is a much better value than this one. But I certainly think that the Mariners in general kind of offer good value. They're so good through the rotation, and to me, through the top of that lineup, they're going to be a tough out for any team.
Definitely so. So that leaves us with the Angels here. Last year on the show, on SportsGrid, I was talking about my favorite win total was under on the Angels. I mean, how it was in the mid-70s, Matt, without Ohtani beats the bleep out of me. I have no idea. There was I didn't get that one at all. So now they've adjusted, and they put the Angels where they need to be, down at 72.5. And really, when you think about it, Matt, no adjustment for all of these random players that they signed in the offseason, like Kenley Jansen and everyone else. I think it's a similar year for the Angels. They win somewhere in the 70s and trade these guys at the deadline.
No, I agree completely. And obviously with Mike Trout, it's about staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, have an old school vintage Mike Trout year, they might surprise. But it's just so tough to expect that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, thanks for coming on. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four, because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in the conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat, because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Let's bring in Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider covering the NFL. We figure we'll keep the conversation going because free agency is coming up here in less than a couple of weeks. And so naturally we're getting closer and closer to that. And then April we'll cover the draft. So, lots of baseball, basketball to cover, but we keep an eye on the NFL as well. Great to have, of course, Adam here in the house. And Adam, all right, so here we go, a couple of weeks away. One of the biggest conundrums that we're going to hit here in free agency trade season is always involves the quarterbacks, let's be honest. But this one is a big one. Let's keep it real here. This is a future Hall of Famer who's won a Super Bowl with his team. The wife has said some stuff here, like there's background stuff with Cooper Kupp. What's going to happen here with Matthew Stafford? Is he going to be back, you think, with the Rams, or is there a legit shot that he's playing somewhere else?
Well, no, you set it up well with the conundrum. See, here's the thing with Stafford. He's still playing at a high level. You mentioned Cooper Kupp. He had the high ankle sprain. He missed significant time. Puka Nacua had a PCL sprain. He missed time. And when you're missing your two-star receivers, and by the way, Tyler Higbee, their starting tight end, missed almost all of the season. He tore his ACL in the last game of the 23 season, so he came back late this season. So obviously, without those pass catchers, the numbers are going to be down. He's still very good. He's a top 10 quarterback. Talking to people around the league, they still have a lot of respect for him. He hasn't regressed like Rodgers, and Rodgers is more because of his body has regressed. He had 2 injuries last season. So here's the thing. Stafford turned 37 on February 7th. Mm-hmm. Talking to teams that need quarterback, there's interest out there. There's no question. I would say at least 4 to 6 teams with varying levels of interest. But we have to understand that it's one thing if you have interest in the quarterback. It's another thing to be interested in paying him money. Stafford wants a new deal. It's going to have to be significant. It's going to have to be a significant increase. And be careful I'm going to be careful when I say this. He's only going to make $27 million in cash this season. Okay, and then really, when you look at 26, which is the last year of his deal, $31 million, that's vastly underpaid. Because Craig, he's still playing very, very well. So you're going to get the belief around the league is you have to get at least a second-round pick to get him. Plus, you got to pay him. That's a big price for a 37-year-old quarterback. You don't usually like extend a guy this late again. The Jets had to redo Rodgers' deal to acquire him, but it wasn't like they were going to pay him market value. So this is a tough one. That's the conundrum as we move along here. Is what is he really worth in terms of average per year and structure and guaranteed money at signing? It's not easy. The Rams, by the way, they did a small adjustment to his contract last season, but right now it's nowhere near what he deserves to get paid.
Yeah, so one quick follow-up on that. So am I crazy in remembering a moment within the last 2-3 years that we thought that Sean McVay was going to leave and bail from the Rams? So what possible position could the Rams take here if maybe they went from Goff to Stafford, so it was like clean.
Yep.
But wouldn't they have to do that again here, Adam, in order to keep McVay? Like, I mean, that's the thing that's a little, troublesome for me here is how would he sign off on this? It seems like he's constantly in win now mode.
Yeah. Okay. So here's what happened with McVay. Then we'll get back to the other part of this issue. So McVay, yes, he had really media offers. Amazon and other networks were very interested in him. And I remember talking to coaches who were looking to join his staff, and Sean was actually honest with him and like, hey, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. Am I going to leave coaching? Am I going to stay? And he ultimately decided to stay. But on your point with the quarterback situation, when you look at it, you and I have talked about Darnold for a number of weeks. Other than that, you're going to have to look to the trade market or the draft. It's just not a good year to need a quarterback. You made a really good point here because Stetson Bennett's the other quarterback under contract, and quite frankly, he's more of a number 3 quarterback at this point than number 2. They don't have a replacement for him. But what they're worried about is if they don't know what the market is, let's say he's worth $55 to $57 million a season. Mm-hmm. Well, they're not going to know that if no one else is interested, but there are other teams interested. I'd like to know where those numbers are, and that's what this is all about.
Gotcha. Combine coming up as well. I know this is a fun time for everyone. Naturally, being in Indianapolis, it's like the marquee event of the year.
It is. So this is why it's big, Craig. Medical evaluations. Every player who goes to the Combine is going to be evaluated medically. He's going to have a physical from top to bottom. Sometimes, unfortunately, there's things that these players didn't know about that they've got going on that need to be cleaned up, and sometimes surgeries are needed. The informal and formal interviews with the players are important. You get a set of 2 15-minute interviews.
Right.
But the official heights and weights, Craig, that's very important because schools, this really bothers me when like a quarterback will be listed as 6'3". He gets to the Combine, he's 6 foot 1/2 inch or 6'1". That matters. Right. And of course the timing, but you don't want to overrate the 40-yard dash time, really specifically for like offensive linemen, defensive linemen. Who cares whether they can run down fast 40 yards downfield? Doesn't matter. You got to be careful with that stuff.
Yep, agreed. All right, we'll see you next week for free agency, Adam, and we'll get into some of the players. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely.
You have Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally taking, he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Sam McQuillan in the house from Legal Sports Report. We'll dive into a potential repeal of sports betting laws in Maryland and also some stock numbers as well. Great to have you back here, Sam, on the show. Although, do we have a scandal on our hands here? I hate to jump the gun on this stuff here, honestly, because it feels like once every few months we hear something, and we did hear something on one of those college basketball teams in Michigan that really, nothing ever kind of came of it. So I don't want to get too nuts here. But there is a story that is being reported about Fresno State and their basketball players and a couple of players who are not eligible currently to play for them. I see their record is 5-23, so that's only adding a little fuel to this fire too. But I'll let you tell the story here and sort of what you think the process will be in figuring out whether or not Fresno State really has an issue.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just preface this by saying, like you allude to, Craig, this is all investigations, initial inquiries that come out because of an alert that happened. Nothing's been decided, but what has happened is there's been some actions taken. Like you mentioned, a couple of players have been suspended at Fresno State for being tied to this investigation. 2 players were suspended. 1 player was actually removed ahead of Saturday's game against Air Force, which Fresno State ended up losing by just 3 points. So they probably could have used a couple of those guys. They were some of the leading scorers on their team, but essentially what happened here is there was an inside tip. We're not sure where the tip exactly came from. It was first reported by ESPN that was sent to the school, presumably mentioning these players as somehow being involved in whether it's point shaving, whether it's manipulating your player props, your points or rebounds. We don't know the parameters yet that they're investigating, but the school got tipped off to this. Then the school involved the NCAA, who then subsequently got involved. The school put out a statement saying that these 2 guards, Jalen Weaver and Zion Collison, are being withheld as the school reviews, quote, eligibility matter. So not even going further to say what exactly it is. Like you mentioned, Eastern Michigan had several games that earlier this year we talked about that were flagged for suspicious betting activity. You have the former Temple player who's under federal investigation for similar activity. So we're getting to this point now in the legal sports betting stage where it's no longer these stories that drop like when Calvin Ridley was suspended, and it kind of felt like for a minute the whole sports world or sports betting world was set on fire. Nobody really knew what to do. People were putting out articles, this is the end of legal sports betting. We're kind of gotten to the stage where we're hearing about these stories a lot more often. That could be a number of things. It could be these programs are working to catch things more. And it also could mean that we're just kind of becoming more numb to this happening. It's becoming less of a big thing that moves stuff in the media cycle. Now, obviously still important and still very curious to see what goes on here, what develops more. A lot of it could just be, things are getting alerted, things are getting flagged. You have the Terry Rozier situation we talked about earlier this year, where he was eventually cleared in this matter by the NBA, saying, we didn't find that he did any wrongdoing, but things are popping up, things are being caught. So now we're kind of wondering, where do we go from here? How do things react? How do things change, especially when you have March Madness right around the corner? And then again, you're talking about college athletes. While in some cases, many of them are being paid, sports betting and the allure of sports betting is still a big thing for these kids who are, in a lot of cases, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, no, look, it's prevalent stories, but as Sam mentioned, very well said, got to be careful, of this stuff, accusing people of things and kids without really knowing the deal. But that's the latest there, and I'm sure we'll follow that story toward the end of the regular season in college as well. All right, so, this is, something that I did not have on my radar, Sam, which is legalizing sports betting 6 years ago. We knew that this was going to happen all over the country. I did not realize that at some point there was even a possibility of repealing sports betting happening. We've heard about this maybe in Vermont. It could maybe potentially happen in Maryland too. What gives? What's going on here?
Yeah, this push started in Vermont, which I wouldn't even give it that much credence there. A lot of these times, these are just messaging laws. Lawmakers want to make a big splash, want to make a name for themselves, want an issue to get behind. In this case, we've seen online gambling grow exponentially across the country. So naturally, there's going to be some pushback. And Maryland is now the second state where lawmakers have introduced a bill that would repeal online sports betting specifically. It would keep in-person sports betting legal. I think that's an important distinction here, especially for the lawmakers, and especially as we've seen the prevalence of online betting, where versus going to a casino where you have money, now it's easy to just do it on your phone. And in a lot of cases, you can lose a lot of money very quickly. So Joanne Benson introduced this bill last week that would repeal online sports betting. It would repeal the ballot amendment that voters passed in 2020, which legalized sports betting. So I think that's an interesting distinction here as well. The voters in the state wanted it. This would be something that kind of repeals what they did. I think that would be hard to muster support for politically. But again, big messaging thing. Maryland has taken over $10 billion in bets since it legalized sports betting, and that's produced $143 million in taxes. You have lawmakers in Maryland, similar to lawmakers in Vermont, saying that it's essentially being pushed as the industry camouflaged as a form of taxation, something that's going to help the state out. But what really it's doing is, disproportionately hurting low-income families, people who are in desperate financial situations. So would like to see some more research behind that. I know a lot of the responsible gaming research is still underway with sports betting so nascent, but it's a lot of messaging out here. We view gaming and gambling expansion as something that's bad, legalizing it, only promoting it versus taking it out of the shadows. Maryland is a state that's also considering iGaming, online casino expansion this year. So it'll be interesting to hear whether this bill, this idea comes up in that conversation as well. A lot of times gaming changes are used as a sort of bargaining chip to expand things. So you might have, for instance, the state has also talked about hiking up their sports betting tax rate. Maybe they'll do that as opposed to just getting rid of online gaming in general. Maybe the industry will see that as a bargaining chip where, okay, we'll agree to a higher tax if online gaming, like iGaming expansion is put on the table. So states are reconsidering kind of what they're doing on the tax level, even on the legalization level. I wouldn't be surprised if I see other states consider this kind of thing, but again, would be surprised if it gets any major political support in any state, at least at this point.
Yeah. I think that's really the story to watch here is what kind of support it has. Just, something being submitted doesn't mean it's going to happen. All right. Meanwhile, how about this? Taxes going up and stocks going down. A tale as old as time. Sam, what's going on with Rush Street Interactive?
Yeah, the Wall Street, the stock market does not love tax increases, and we've heard a lot talked about them in the U.S. as of late. But Rush Street Interactive, which owns Bet Rivers, still a sports betting app that's very much operational in big states like New York, as well as Pennsylvania, their company took a major stock hit this week or the end of last week, as Colombia, in their state of emergency, automatically triggered a hike on their online gaming tax. So interesting, one thing that happens in this one country can really impact what happens in the U.S. BetRivers is an app that's been talked about as not really been making a break in the competitive tier of sports betting apps, even in the second tier of the BetMGMs, the Caesars, the guys trying to keep up with FanDuel and DraftKings. BetRivers has been lagging behind. They have been able to survive by essentially growing their online gaming business, their iGaming business. They've been kind of waiting more than anybody for more states to expand and really get in there. BetRivers owns a lot of casinos around the country. But with the stock price taking such a hit, some are supposing the idea that maybe it's just not worth hanging on to online sports betting in name of hoping for the iGaming expansion. So this could be a case where we see an app, a sports betting app that offers customers another place to find prices, another place to find bets, use promos, become a casualty because of the overall economic gaming landscape across the country. And this is at a time, of course, when ESPN Bet is in similar turmoil. Fanatics is trying to rapidly expand. They're not doing such a good job maintaining that market share. So what we could see at the end of the day is more apps just falling to the wayside. And the story that we've heard the whole time we've been in sports betting, with DraftKings and FanDuel just continuing to fatten their lead. But you have to wonder what happens when we have less competition, how that all impacts the consumer at the end of the day. But don't want to jump the gun here. BetRivers is still very much active. It's just not looking great for them right now.
Yeah, and look, taxes are going to hurt, especially with these companies that are not named FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and some others. Sam, great stuff as always. We'll read more over at LegalSportsReport.com. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Craig.
All right, great stuff as always from Sam McQuillan of Legal Sports Report. Coming up, Coach Young is on deck with a recap of the NBA games yesterday. Don't you?
Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the two best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back to NewsWire. It's a Monday here on the show, and so we check in on the latest in the National Basketball Association. We like to keep Coach Young busy this time of the year with the NBA heating up, and then March Madness right around the corner. So all the big buckets, of course, going to be followed live here at SportsGrid. Coach Young, thanks for coming on the show once again. It's great to be with you. And, I don't know how to feel about the Knicks right now. That's where I want to start here because I know, certainly a lot of our viewership is in the Northeast. We broadcast out of the Northeast. And so we tend to talk a lot about the Northeast teams and the Knicks. But are we going to be talking about them in the semifinals or the finals of the East? I mean, they just keep losing to these good teams, don't they? Do they have to eventually win these, or what's happened doesn't matter?
Well, listen, you look at New York and they look completely disjointed. They come out of the All-Star break, obviously get a tough win versus Chicago and then go and get smoked by Cleveland and the Celtics. Folks, top 3 teams in the NBA, Cleveland, Boston, Oklahoma City. The Knicks are 0-7 against those teams. In fact, Craig, I think they've lost all 7 games by double-digit points. And it's those guys. It's those two. It's Jaylen Brown. It's Jason Tatum. When the Knicks, Craig, made the trade to get Bridges and OG Anunoby, they were looking at Boston and saying that we have to get 2 premier defenders on the perimeter. Well, 25 and 24, that is an issue. Jalen Brunson, you can't say enough about his play. Mm-hmm. But now you look at the Knicks team that struggles defensively. They need Mitchell Robinson back. Now, here's the thing. Mitchell Robinson's been oft injured, right? He hasn't played all year. Is he the difference maker? Now, he allows Cap to go to the 4, which should make them stronger defensively. And he's an offensive rebounding machine. Actually, probably, I would say, the best offensive rebounder in the NBA today when healthy. But when it comes to the Knicks, Greg, I'm going to say this. It's about matchups. They don't match up with Boston as well. I actually think with Robinson, they could match up a little bit better with Cleveland. So if you're New York sitting at the 3 spot, 3 games ahead of Indiana, I know this may sound crazy. If I'm a Knicks fan, and I am, I'd rather be the 4. I'd rather be the 4 and try and beat either Milwaukee or Detroit in the 4-5 matchup and then go that route versus Cleveland to try and get to an Eastern Conference final. I don't think they match up well with the Celtics because everything the Knicks are, the Celtics are better. They're deeper. They shoot it better. They got better depth. They got better coaching. They have that over the Knicks. The Knicks do have beating Cleveland in the playoffs last year and really roughing them up. I think the better route for Knicks, 4 seed, that way they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. If they're the 3 and Boston's the 2, forget about, I like to say in New York, forget about it. They're not getting past them.
Wow. And no one is going to like seeing that if that happens this season. So, Coach, the bar has been reset, let's be honest, in Philadelphia. I mean, the Sixers are a proud franchise. I get that. The Eagles just won the Super Bowl. The Phillies are going to play for a championship one way or the other this year. I mean, it is really hard to tell the fans in Philadelphia that your pro team is not going to compete. But is that what they actually have to do right now? I mean, don't they have to figure out what to do with Joel Embiid? To me, I don't know if it's apples and oranges. It feels like Kawhi Leonard a little bit. It took years to just get this guy healthy again. Is Embiid healthy? Is he not healthy? Is it worth him playing once every 3 days to get him back on the court? Coach, what do the Sixers do moving forward?
They're stuck. There's no way around it. And my problem with Joel Embiid started with the fact that when he was limping in the playoffs, he went and played for the Olympic team. I thought he should have sat his behind at home. Just like Kawhi Leonard, who was told by the Clippers, you're not playing. Just like the Warriors told Andrew Wiggins, you're not playing for Canada. I thought he should have sat. He's not healthy. And this is the guy that's had knee issues going back to his days at Kansas. So what do you do if you're Philadelphia? You got all this money tied into those two, to him and Paul George. Your window is now. Well, the window's done closed. So what do? Do you do the smart thing, which is say Embiid, get surgery, punt, we'll go for it next year, we'll try and run it back. If they didn't have Paul George, I would say yes. The problem is they're stuck. And I want people to understand something, even though I'm a Knicks fan. I'm close enough to Philadelphia to know this. Besides the Eagles, you don't want to be irrelevant in Philadelphia. They'll turn on the Phillies, they'll turn on the Flyers, and they'll turn on the 76ers. And especially with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl and the Phillies with the Mets, obviously, and the Braves are going to be in a really tight NL East race, you don't want to be irrelevant. And right now, they are. And they got an aging superstar, an older superstar, and the two teams in the geographic area, Boston and New York, are way better than them.
Yeah, tough scene there. So the Warriors, it looks like, Coach, with another win, 126-102 over Dallas. It looks like this is one of those true teams that we say what you saw in September, October, November, December is not the same team now. Like, I mean, it's very obvious that Jimmy Butler is going to make a significant impact on this team. But what kind of impact can that be, Coach? I mean, the teams in the West, top 3, top 4, regular season-wise, are going to be significantly better than where Golden State is. Can this really get them into that top 5 category? I know they're not going to finish that in the regular season, but could they look like that in the playoffs?
I'll tell you what do they call him down there in Miami? Hemi Butler? Hemi Butler's him. And that guy and that team, Dallas, did not look like themselves yesterday. But of course, obviously not having AD.
Right.
But you got to remember, folks, they were 8-2 to start the year, Golden State, until they went in that losing streak, really from the end of November, probably to the middle of January. They're playing good basketball. Now, listen, here is the key thing now, folks. They have gotten themselves into a position where you could now say, could they not only be a top 8 seed, but folks, they're tied in the loss column for 7, and they're only 2 behind the Clippers. If they could find a way to get out of there and get to the 6th seed, they have experience. My problem is who do they match up with? If they play a team like Denver in the first round of the 3-6 matchup, that's a problem because the Joker will smoke them. But Jimmy Butler's got his money, and Jimmy's happy, which is good for the Warriors.
It was the same for the Heat for the first 3 years. Thanks, Coach, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Craig.
All right, we'll take a quick timeout. When we come back next, we dive into a half-court shot by an ex-Yankee.
Duke the 1, Houston the 2. They're the 2 best defensive teams in the country. I want to see them play for the right to go to the Final Four because I think that would be a kick-ass game.
Duke is really great on both ends of the floor. They can score and they can defend, and that's why they win by big numbers all the time, because they're really good on both ends of the floor. I don't trust Houston's offense.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I talked about AZ Fudd a lot, folks, and said when she got back from that knee injury, remember, it's the second ACL tear she's had in her career, that she was going to be a difference maker. UConn is plus 330. They're not going to get challenged again in the Big East until they come out of conference play in a conference tournament. I still like them at plus 330 to win a national championship.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I feel when I look at this Arizona team, I don't take them serious as a national title threat because you're asking Caleb Love to bottle magic that I just don't even think exists.
4.4, 6.6, 7.4, 7.7, 7.8. This guy is literally he'll shoot you out of games, Kevin.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
2 guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Another big piece of memorabilia up for auction, getting a hefty price. What is Alex Rodriguez doing taking 3-point shots? And do you know who won the PGA Tour's Mexico Open? this past weekend? I'm going to bet you don't, so I'm going to tell you. Time now for some last licks. All right, so we got a very significant auction price here for a Super Bowl ring. That is from none other than former Giants wide receiver Plaxico Burress, who had his Super Bowl ring sold, and it was sold for the second highest price ever for a Super Bowl ring. This happened last week. The top spot was the ring of Baltimore Colts head coach Don McCafferty, who had his ring sold for $300,000. Apparently, Burress is sold for $280,000. Remember, the Giants won some very big Super Bowls back then. I'm going to guess this was the one against the New England. Were they both against the Patriots? We're both. I mean, my mind is like slipping here, but definitely $280,000 is a huge price for one of these. Generally, Super Bowl rings are in the $50,000 to $100,000. And so, so the 2007 Super Bowl, this is what it was, $280,000 for this one. Remember, the Giants beat the New England Patriots. Patriots were undefeated that season going into the Super Bowl. So it does make some sense, and I'm going to guess that this is some mega Giants fan as well. But generally speaking, Super Bowl rings, $50,000, $100,000, $125,000, $150,000, not crazy. This is a big number. That's double that. $280,000, not for me. I'm going to pass on this. Okay, so as it turns out, Alex Rodriguez making a speech over the weekend at Bucknell University. He is getting ready to be a minority partner, well, possibly, I guess, in the Minnesota Timberwolves. Mark Lore involved in that as well. Very random appearance at a basketball game at Bucknell University. Saturday afternoon at the basketball game at halftime, they give A-Rod the basketball and say, if you hit this shot from half court, we will give a Bucknell student $10,000. This guy goes out there, throws the ball up, and literally goes in for a half-court shot. I mean, you can't make it up. I mean, I'm assuming, did he practice this at all before the game or anything like that? I mean, that lucky to hit it. I mean, A-Rod's one of the best athletes of all time. I mean, fantastic baseball player. I know the other stuff exists. I'm aware. Still a great athlete. Some of the best numbers ever in baseball. Did he play basketball at Westminster in Miami? I don't recall that. But his bomb, from half-court shot went in, and the student ended up winning $10,000. I think they'll invite A-Rod back to a basketball game again. That would be my guess. Couldn't figure out why he was at Bucknell, by the way. A little weird. All right, finally, PGA Tour, one of the more anonymous events of the weekend. By the way, fantastic finish, crazy finish for the Mexico Open. It looked like three different players at the Mexico Open were going to win at one point. I was watching this because our buddy Brady Cannon was on. We were texting back and forth. It looked like anybody could win this thing. And it ended up being the best story of the weekend because Brian Campbell, who is this? Brian Campbell ended up winning the Mexico Open. If you don't know who he is, you're not alone. I didn't either. Here are his last 8 PGA Tour starts. This is his first ever win, by the way. Last 8 PGA starts from this young man by the name of Brian Campbell, who had an incredible celebration after it was over. He missed the cut, finished 56th. So any of you on FanDuel and DraftKings betting top 50s, you lost. Same thing 2 tournaments ago, he finished 51st. Last week, he ended up getting cut. And then this week, he ends up winning. It just shows you, this is a great story in perseverance, man. Like anything can happen. I'm sure he's making a nice living playing on the PGA Tour, okay? But he goes from nice to changing his life with one win. And that should be a good inspiration for everybody out there. You just got to keep fighting and persevering, and you never know when your day is going to come. It came for Brian Campbell in Mexico yesterday. Great story there on the PGA Tour. Now things heat up. Got Players Championship and certainly big tournaments here in Florida going on. Honda Classic this week as well. Okay, that will do it for our show today. Thanks again to our great guests on the program, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Also, thanks to Coach Young here from SportsGrid, in addition to Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, and thanks again to Adam Caplan, our SportsGrid insider. Now, as far as our schedule the rest of the day, I'm sure Smiley's going to be talking about this coming up at noon, this great win for Brian Campbell. That's followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast, 3 o'clock Eastern. Got some great college basketball tonight and some NBA. Game time decisions coming your way later, followed by in-game live game day. And then Gabe has a full recap of all the NBA games and college basketball tonight. That is Sports Rage this evening. It is appointment viewing and listening on SportsGrid Radio, if that is your cup of tea. Thanks again to our director, Luke, and for my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. And I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow on our next edition of NewsWire. We'll recap the latest in Major League Baseball, news, notes, information. Not a lot of spring training action, it looks like, in Florida today. For those of you who are crazy betting on spring training, got to head on over to Arizona today. So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your evening.